everybody, this is Dr. Carmen Bryant. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Thank you to all the new subscribers for being here. Thank you for being patient with me as I have to go through the workday and then come in and make videos. And so I really appreciate the comments. I appreciate the emails and even the video suggestions. So today I wanted to talk about, what happens, and some of you, not some of you, most of you have experienced this when you finally decide to disclose the abuse. When you finally decide to stand up and say, this is what is happening in private, and you're reaching out for help, and people start turning their back, or people don't believe what you say. And it's almost like, what was the purpose? It's a secretive thing. Domestic violence, and especially, domestic violence by a narcissist abuse is very secretive. It's a very shameful thing, for some people. The abuse brings a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. You remember that you're being gaslighted by the narcissist, so they're making you feel as if this is what you deserve, this is what you have done. I don't care what you have done, no one deserves to be abused, but this is how most people feel. And so when they finally put their foot down and finally decide to disclose the abuse, oftentimes the response that they get from people within the religious community, the counselors, the responses you get from marriage and family counselor, couple counselors, or individual counselors, or the people, your friends, closest people to you, your family. Some of the responses that that survivors or victims of this type of abuse, and we'll just because the videos are usually focused on narcissist abuse, that's what we're going to focus on. It's toxic relationships. Not everyone that abuses is a narcissist, but our focus is the narcissist. And so when you finally decide to disclose to people, maybe you've watched videos and now you're trying to explain to them, or you finally decide to disclose the abuse, you finally decide to tell them what is going on, and then the reaction, the responses that you get from those that have been with you, or those that are close, those that you have entrusted, really has re-victimized you, has put you back into a position of re-victimization. And so it becomes, it's almost to a point where you believe, what was the point of me telling it? I knew no one was going to believe me. And then sometimes the narcissist is telling you no one is going to believe you, especially if you're dealing with those that are covert narcissists. When you're dealing with a covert narcissist, whether it's cerebral or a somatic narcissist, they've already presented themselves to society, to friends, to family. They presented themselves as this wonderful, awesome individual, that everyone loves. Some of them are entertainers. They make wonderful movies. Some of them are great actors. Wonderful musicians and artists. Or the average individual, great job, wonderful, works in the community, police officers, military professional, medical professionals, work at the mall, work at the flower shop, just really nice individuals that people just enjoy being around. A lot of them have a great sense of humor, and they're funny, what ends up happening is to disclose that information, and do know that they've already smear campaigned you. They just did it real smooth. A lot of times people think the smear campaign is they really go in and call you disabled or whatever. Now, a lot of them do, but they play on the emotions of other people. Remember, they're emotional manipulators. They have cognitive empathy, so they understand how emotions work, because that's how they manipulate. They don't cognitively have empathy in order to connect with you on an emotional level. They have cognitive empathy, meaning they understand how emotions work, how people react, how people respond, how they're supposed, they mimic as it is. So they have to have that cognitive empathy. They mimic as it is. They mirror you, but they understand how emotions work, and then that's how they manipulate. They use that to manipulate. And so here you are deciding to expose that, or you have these people that are in the community, just wonderful people, judges, lawyers, whoever, these people that are supposed to be in a position to be able to help you, people that are supposed to be understanding, and you're being re-victimized because people don't believe you because of what the narcissist says or what they see on the outside, not what they know on the inside. You're the one, and your family are the ones that have went through what you went through on the inside of your house, the type of abuse and what has happened, and the things that they do. And the cerebral narcissist is not always one that will put their hands on you, that will do things to be able to put a finger on it to say this is abuse. They're thinkers, so they think of how no bruises, I'm not going to put my hands on you. But there are emotional manipulators. They know how to control. They know how to isolate. And so the problem is that if you don't have any marks on you, if they put their hands on you, if they haven't done all that, then obviously it must not be abuse. And so now you've decided, let's look at the, Christian community for a minute, or even the religious community in general. Here you go and you decide to tell one of your religious leaders, or tell whatever programs you have set up in within your religious organization, and thank God that people like my mentor Apostle Helen Sadler, people like Bishop R.C. Blakes, people like Bishop T.D. Jakes, and many more church leaders have identified and are identifying and verbalizing that there is domestic violence in relationships, and they recognize it. Now they're not, and I believe it was Bishop Blakes and Pastor Blakes, Bishop Blakes, I'm not sure, make sure I give the proper honor, and my leader, and of course Bishop Jakes, all have said that, it's now they recognize that, a lot of times when couples come in, these people are being abused, and to tell them to work it out and pray and go back and make this work has caused many people to lose their lives. The children were being abused, sexually abused. Some people have committed suicide. Some people have been murdered by the very individuals that they sent back into these homes. And so they are more cognizant, and they make the, I don't know what goes on in the counseling session at pastoral counseling, but they have identified that we're not so quick to encourage people to go back into the homes. Just like my pastor, my mentor says, she doesn't encourage people to go back. You need to find safety. You need to be safe. Your children need to be safe. That's why they have homeless shelters and domestic violence, not homeless shelters, but domestic violence shelters. That's why they have programs, and she guides them to the program. That's why they have people like myself and my colleague, a friend of mine, who is a DV advocate, people that are resources provider, and she connects them. She doesn't quickly send them back home. She connects them with these resources to get them help, get them housing, and so that's a good thing. Now the awareness is out there where people are not so quick to say, pray about it and go back, or whatever other religious organizations say. Another thing, for some people, when they have open that up and finally said I'm being abused, sometimes what has happened is that the leaders were not trained in this. They were not trained in mental health. They were not trained in domestic violence. They were not trained how to handle the situation, and what are the national hotlines, and what are the signs and symptoms. So they're not trained. So a lot of them did not know how to address the problems. And there were some people that said that, that nothing happened. I was being abused, and people knew, but they kind of turned the blind eye because they didn't know how to address the issue or the problem. So it turned a lot of people away from the religious organizations because they didn't get any help, because they weren't trained. They didn't know how to handle it. They weren't counselors. They didn't know what to say. Work it out, make it work. And so being re-abused. Now let's look at, what about in the counseling sessions? You have those that are couple counselors, marriage and family therapists, or therapists, and they go in as a couple. Well, you got one of them that's a narcissist. And so the narcissists, who also play the victim all the time, will go in, and they go in with the verbiage of the victim, and they go on with the victim, and they take, what they do is they don't actually take accountability of their actions. They do it for the purpose of show. And so when things are brought out, they may say, yes, I know that I hurt him. I know that I cheated on her. I know that I was having an affair, but he just will not forgive me, or she will not forgive me. And no matter where we, how we try to move forward, and I know, and we'll say what they've done. These are the things that I've done, and I know I haven't always been right, but I love my family and I want to be with my family. The point that they didn't make is, no, he won't forgive me. No, I've forgiven you over and over again. However, every time I forgive you, you go back and do the same thing. And so a lot of people, when they get into counseling, you're already gaslit. They're gaslighting you as it is, and some of them are very fast talkers. So once the therapist starts to pick up on one thing, they change the subject and get you all over the place. And a lot of times they play with the emotions of the therapist as well. And so they'll make comments like that, or they'll make it, They even divert the whole conversation like, well, first of all, this is the kind of home he knows that I came out of, this type of home, and I was molested as a child and abused when I grew up, and so I don't even know how to, the excuse, the justification, I don't even know how to have a relationship. I'm trying the best that I can, and I keep messing up, and and I don't know how to fix this. And the victim is, in their mind, they're looking at him like they no longer have the tears to cry, or they're crying because they're looking at them like, you are full of crap. You're sitting in here and you're lying, and you're telling them that I won't forgive you, yet every time I forgive you, you do the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, you're going through life, but you're not talking about you just got caught again yesterday, or the things that you've done, that you've hurt my children, you've done this, and I would never do. And the kids, sometimes kids tell lies, and I can't believe, and they don't like me anyway. And it's sometimes, you guys, as a professional myself, you see a lot of things that go on in counseling, and that's for majority of the counselors that work in situations like that. Sometimes it becomes a mess, a confused mess, and a lot of therapists are not trained. They understand what narcissistic personality is, and they know the symptoms. But just like I used to say in the military, you can have, when we used to train the young officers, they have the book knowledge. So they know what it looked like in the book. And so they try to take book knowledge, or they try to take a, one-dimensional picture and make it look three-dimensional, which they didn't know how to do. Or they try to take something that was in the book and apply it to real living people whose situation changes from moment to moment. They don't add in the factors. They got mood, they got attitude, they got their own issues. You got to deal with different personalities. One is loud, one is quiet, one's an introvert, one needs a lot of encouragement, so a person may take something out of the book, but they can't apply it to real life. What does it look like in real life, in real time? And when you're dealing with a narcissist, a lot of therapists have not been exposed or understand what a narcissist. They know the symptoms, and they're all very arrogant, very boisterous and loud, and lack empathy, and they know they got the head knowledge and the book knowledge, but they don't know what it plays out or what it looks like in an actual relationship. Taking advantage of people, what do they do, or how insidious that these individuals can really be. And so they're sitting in counseling and they're watching it play out in front of them, but all they thinking is domestic violence. They don't understand, or they're not watching for the cues or the cues or the subtle behavior or certain things that are being said. Because remember, a narcissist does word salad. A narcissist does a lot of word play. There's a lot of undercurrents when they're talking. There's a lot of coding. If you guys understand computers, they deal with a lot of word coding. When you're dealing with hypnosis, when you're dealing with changing the way a person thinks, or manipulating, or trying to cause them to think a certain way, or imparting information, they use a lot of words in order to tap in and say stuff to cause you to believe or move your emotions. And they do it with adults, and they do it with their own children. And so most of the time, a therapist who has not been trained to recognize or do videos or talk videos or watch videos or learn in detail, not what it looks statistically so we can work on trying to help the narcissist. No, what does it look like for the victim and the family? What are you looking at while you're sitting in session? Do you recognize what is going on? Don't be so quick to give advice like, okay, well, you guys need to take the 5 love language test, and then you guys need to go on a date, and this is what you need to do, and you need to journal, and let's work on active communication. Let's work on communication skills. Let's work on active listening. Repeat what that individual says. Oh, the narcissist loves that, and then the other thing you pay attention to is that they come in, and if you notice, everything that they say is always the victim's fault. Everything is about them and the victim, and how. Now, they'll agree with you when you start picking up on certain things. They'll agree, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. And everything seems like, oh, this is good, and you're looking at the victim as the problem. Well, the victim is being re-victimized. This is what they're accustomed to, and so it's like a waste of their time to tell you, listen, I'm being abused. This is what I did. This is everything has and remember, the narcissist will also try to gaslight the therapist. and triangulate, because a lot of times what a narcissist will do is try to get the therapist to side with them so that it looks like both of them are attacking the victim. And sometimes unknowingly a therapist does that and doesn't realize that is what they're doing, that they are actually re-victimizing the person that's actually the victim in the situation. Usually by the time if a therapist is trained to identify it, normally couples counseling does not last that long. They normally does not last that long. Once you figured out what you're dealing with, and then you begin to lock down, and you realize, and you have to stay focused and strategic. At that time, when that narcissist realizes they cannot manipulate the therapist, that usually they will no longer come to counseling, and they will no longer have couple counseling. It is very short-lived. They normally do not stay. It's not very productive, and they normally do not stay in counseling. So, but like I said, here you go. This victim is trying to, express themselves and tell what's going on, and now you're dealing with therapists that really don't. And then you got some excellent therapists, but they just don't understand what it looks like, what does narcissism look like played out in a relationship, and how badly people are being victimized by these individuals that have narcissism, and a lot of them are more for trying to help the abnormal personality disorder versus focusing on the victim or the survivors of abuse. And so then you may have, friends and family. You start telling your friends and family, and some of them, there's too much drama, well, maybe if you would have done more of this, you know that you used to cheat when you guys got together too, or, you can be a hothead too, or, because every time they see you, you are reacting off of what is good. It's like, it's the symptomology of what is happening in your home. So the way that you act, you're acting out your frustration and the hurt and the pain that you're experiencing at home. That's just like with children. I tell people, when children start acting up, when children start having behavior problems in school, start having really serious behavior problems, especially when they're young, usually I look at the parents. I look at the household. I look at the parents to see what's going on, because it's a symptom of a bigger problem. And when you're dealing with young kids, normally you have to deal with the headship, which is the mother and the father, or the parents, whoever the parents are. That is usually what I look at as a therapist. And if you listen to a lot of other marriage and family therapists, they'll tell you, I look at the parents and look at what's going on in the household, because those are symptoms of a bigger problem and stuff that is going on, because children do not know how to express themselves. They don't know how to say, I'm really depressed and I feel abused, and they don't know how to say that. They act it out, and so they act it out in behavioral problems. And so imagine you're trying to disclose this information to your in-laws, or you're trying to disclose this information to your family or your friends, and they say, well, this is how you are, and he's trying his best, or she's trying her best. You ain't never been in a position like this where someone took care of you like they did. Obviously that she loves you, because she wouldn't look at this. You are what if you were a single parent, and look, that person loves your, male or female, loves your children, as if they were their own, and you're like, he abuses my kids, or she abuses my children, and does it in a very subtle way. Well, I've never put my hands on your kids, and the only thing that I do is I try to be, I don't believe in disrespect, but they don't know how they antagonize the kids and the stuff that they say to them to make them feel less than. Parents, pay attention to that. When you have someone and you're exposing somebody to your children, I say it again and again in all the videos, but when you expose someone, believe your kids. Kids will lie, but they won't lie about how somebody is treating them, well, some of them do, but the point is that, they're acting out, they're having behavior problems, but it started when this person entered into your life. You got females that molest children and antagonize and abuse kids just like men do. And females can be very vicious, very emotionally tormenting, just like a man can, and sometimes even worse, because women can be petty, and so they do a lot of emotional stuff. And so a lot of times they may not put their hands on the child, and that's male and female alike, but they'll say things to attack their character, to attack their not their character, but even their self-esteem, to make them feel less than, or to make them feel, they just treat them very differently than the other children, especially when you get into a marriage where there's kids on both sides, and the narcissist has a child, and they're trying to impress the new supply, so they favor the new supply's children over their own, and whatever the new supply says, they act upon it and make it seem like, and they're really attacking you. They're not attacking the child, they're attacking you through the child, and the child is being abused, but you're trying to tell this information to people, and people like, I think you just need to work it out. I think you need to work on yourself, because you used to do this, and they're doing all this and you're just being ungrateful. Or if they're flying monkeys, that's not true. That is not how she is. Or I can't. So, and then for some people to turn their back because they don't know how to handle your situation. Your friends and family are not your counselors. So a lot of them don't know how to handle your situation. Like, I don't have time for this. I'm not trying to get involved in this. And some of them know that you're married to a monster, or you have a partner that is a monster. Some of them know. Some families know, but they don't want to get involved because they don't want to be a part of this drama, because they know how that individual is and how they will be attacked for helping you, or they'll be cut off for helping you. And so there are some, in the narcissist mind, you'll be punished if you support him, or you'll be punished if you support her. Take your grandkids away, I won't talk to you, or I'll abuse you. And so when you're trying to come out, a lot of you are facing the hardship of people believing you. People not thinking that you're crazy based off of what the narcissist has said. Family and friends deciding to withdraw and not have anything to do with it, and point their fingers at you, and if you would have done this, and maybe had you have done this, and maybe she wouldn't have done this, or let me tell you something. Stick with your truth. Your truth. What has happened. I don't care what nobody says to you guys. What has happened to you. What goes on behind closed doors when nobody else knows what goes on behind closed doors. The tears that you cry at night from being tormented, from your children being abused, from you being isolated, from you being ridiculed, for you being smear campaigned, for you being embarrassed and humiliated and shamed in front of people. What you go through behind closed doors. And I don't care if anybody believes you. You do have a community here that has been through some of the exact same things that you have been through. You have a community of people and support groups that are making light of this situation. And so you are not alone. And especially during these holiday seasons, I'm very adamant about making sure I come and talk to you guys, because you're starting to feel during this holiday season where your emotions are heightened. Some of you are being hoovered, and you're contemplating back and forth, like, I miss him, but I know this is why I left. And so I'm telling you guys, you stand your ground, and your truth is your truth. Don't you ever forget what you've been through. You can always forgive, but don't you ever forget, because I hate when people say forgive and forget. You can't forget. That's called amnesia. Hopefully you don't forget, because if you forget, you'll make the same mistakes again and again. And some people don't learn until they make the mistakes over and over again. And so you forgive, but you never forget, or you'll make the same mistakes, or you'll go back. Don't ever forget why you left. Don't ever forget why you got out of that relationship. You're safe. Your children are safe. And if you're still being hoovered, and there are laws out there, get in contact with domestic violence advocates. Get help, because your truth. I don't care who believes it. You come on here to the support group. You come in here and talk to this tribe. You reach out to coaches that deal with narcissist abuse and recovering from narcissist abuse. Connect with people within the community, because we understand. Most of us that are on here, I can't say out of 24,000 subscribers, everybody has been through it, because some people on here are actually not survivors. Some of them are actually narcissists. And those that are not narcissists, some of them are here to learn. And that's good. Some of them are professionals that are here to learn, and they want to know. They've never experienced it before. Some have said, I've never experienced it before, but I'm beginning to see. That's a good thing. So everybody on here is not a survivor, but those of you that are survivors and this in this tribe, a lot of you understand what it was like, the secret, the shame, what goes on behind closed doors, and how they try to make you feel like a fool or make you feel like you're crazy. The things that they would say, police show up at your door and you're the crazy one because you're the one that's acting up, or you're acting out of character and everything. No, your truth. You stand by your truth. Don't change your story. What happened. Stick with your story. I don't care if people leave you. Let them go. What do they say? Let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Let them go. Because they were never meant to be with you in the first place. If it's easy for them to leave, it was never meant for them to be in your life. If you're going through this type of crisis and you are going through this type of abuse, and they turn their back on you, or they don't believe what you say, and sometimes it's hard to swallow. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow when they find out what has been going on or what's happening to you. Sometimes people emotionally don't know how to handle that. Sometimes emotionally they don't know what to do to help or to try to help you, And sometimes it's better to be a listening ear and a supportive person to try to connect them with resources instead of giving people your opinion. Stop giving people your opinion. Shut up. You don't know. Shut up. You talk too much. you're re-victimizing them by what you think you know. If you've never been through it, shut your mouth. Go learn about it and stop re-victimizing individuals. I know that was harsh, honey. Somebody gonna get mad and write a comment. Write your comment, baby. Go ahead. But what I'm telling you is that if you don't know what you're talking about, go study it first before you interject your opinion in people's lives, because you're re-victimizing people. And some of you have been re-victimized because you finally got the courage to come out and say, hey, this is what's happening to me. And people didn't believe you, or people have left your life, or people just, I don't want to deal with that, or some friends have left. Let them go. Get yourself help. Connect with people that domestic violence advocates, that they understand and they believe you. Trust you me. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. To all the new subscribers, thank you for being here. Please subscribe to Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. It's Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Make sure you hit the bell so you know whenever I come on live on Sundays between 8 and 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I have 2 Facebook pages. One is my professional page, Psychological Health Consultants and Services. The other one is my book, which is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. That's my book support page. And so if you have not purchased my book already, you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It is Unmasking the Illusion of Perfection. It is real stories about real people. I do provide biblical encouragement and scriptures. However, if you are not a believer, which many people were not, and said they did get something out of the book, because they're real stories, and it might be telling your stories. These are real people that went through real things, what they thought about, how they escaped, what they were thinking, some of the abuse they went through childhood, and how they were thinking, that they had to accept what they were going through. This is the best that I'll ever have, and they settled. And so the kids ended up being abused, and the things that they were thinking, they went through homicidal thoughts, suicidal thoughts, the things that they were thinking and how they were trained. So purchase the book, purchase it for somebody may need it. Make it a stocking stuffer for this Christmas that you may think may need it. You never know, somebody may need it. Share the videos, make sure you get the videos out there. Also, I have a sponsored link, which is www.betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen. At this particular time, I'm currently not accepting online clients to do online counseling. However, if you register with BetterHelp.com, you will, using my code /Dr. Carmen, you will get a 10% discount. If you are having financial difficulties, they do have and you talk to them, you let them know they do have grants, they do have financial grants, and they can assist you. But I encourage you guys, because it's very, very, very important. Some of you guys really need counseling. I do not provide counseling over state lines. I have people on here that are asking me to contact them so they can start counseling with me. I cannot do counseling across state lines. You have to find a counselor in your particular state, or you go to BetterHelp. These are licensed professionals, and you look for those that are trauma professionals, ones that understand post-traumatic stress, trauma, domestic violence, and abuse. Look for those, vet those, and get yourself a counselor. They do online counseling. They talk to you on the phone, get you counseling. Remember, it's betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen. You get a 10% discount. If you're having financial difficulties, talk to them, let them know your situation. There are financial grants out there. They're always doing something different. As I learn, I'm going to let you guys know. Also, I am on podcast. You can find me on Podbean, and it is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. I'm on Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, and I think that's it. So Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. You can find, and it's under Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. You won't find me under Dr. Carmen Bryant. It'll be Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. So go look for me. Make sure you go and listen to those podcasts. And once again, thank you guys so much for being here. I wanted to come into I have office, and I have 2 offices within an office, and I want you guys to see the background back there. Just let you guys see when I sit in here, what I see is really a nice view over here of these apartments that are behind me. And you get to see my pretty plant back there too. And so thank you guys so much for being here. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and go be great.